Let's bring in Brett Winton. He's the chief futurist at ARK Invest and has been tracking the AI race. Brett, great to have you with us. How should we think about this? Because right now we're thinking about, the revenue impact, but in terms of long-term advantage, Google versus Microsoft, who has it?
I think Google is fundamentally impaired by this transition to AI. It's a classic innovator's dilemma story where they claim they have technology. They could do it if they wanted to, but the transition to AI really imperils both the cost structure of search and their ability to generate revenue off search. Their entire business model is built around taking people and delivering them to the next site. And these AI systems actually deliver answers to the end users. And so search as a way station to the rest of the internet, it's not going to persist as a typical user behavior over the course of this business cycle.
Is this assessment made based almost solely on what Google unveiled last week? Or was this your thinking prior to and going into even that botched launch?
Oh, yeah, it's independent of that botched launch. I think people inside Google will say, hey, we have just as good AI as OpenAI, which is probably true, but their entire business structure revolves around this idea that people go to a site to go to another site to get to their answer. We think that text prompt AI-based tools are going to live inside of software. You're no longer going to go outside of Excel to Google search to look for a piece of data. That piece of data is going to be provided to you inside Excel, and so it'll cut Google search out of that entire user flow and extend that to any economic activity that an employee engages in. And so the stages of grief for kind of Google shareholders is one, first stage, hey, this isn't going to matter. Second stage is, hey, actually, this will make search more costly to perform. Then the third stage is, hey, actually, this is going to impact the number of click-throughs we get from search because it's providing answers. But the fourth stage is, hey, actually, people aren't going to go to search at all. Traffic's going to fall off because the way in which we engage with the material of information on the internet is going to be changed by this.
So we are making the point that there is almost a dollar for dollar transfer of market cap from Alphabet to Microsoft in just the past 1 week. Walk us through, if you will, what Microsoft has that you think is innovative, or maybe what they have isn't. And it just shows that Google's model is fragile and is vulnerable.
Yeah, I think Google's model is fragile, and it doesn't necessarily accrue to Microsoft's benefit. I don't think a head-to-head competition between search engines is actually leading us to the winning strategy. Instead, you can imagine that maybe Google protects search by spending a lot more money on AI inferencing and potentially driving business towards NVIDIA as Microsoft tries to compete with them. It could be that Microsoft's strategy in launching Bing powered by AI is really just a way to collect data to monetize on the back end through their Office franchise and the way in which AI is going to build into the Office franchise. So I don't know that Microsoft is the natural winner here. It's much more clear that there will be a lot of money spent on AI investment, that the picks and shovels that provide for this kind of capability into software will be really well positioned. I think the analogy to the early internet is a good one, where early internet actually the winner was not the Amazons and the consumer-facing internet companies that we think of today. It was Cisco, which was providing all of the infrastructure that allowed people to get connected. Well, here, who's providing the infrastructure that allow these AI models to be changed? That's the chip companies, that is companies in the private space like Mosaic ML who are enabling enterprises to build these AI models for themselves. And so it's really interesting, and I think Google's very vulnerable.
Brett, it's Karen. Thanks for being on. I agree with you on the picks and shovels concept, but getting back to the search concept, so it sounds like you must think then that even if Google retains share, or regardless of who gets share, that ultimately it will just be a less profitable business to be in search. What do you think is going to happen to those margins, if I'm right about what I think your theory is?
Yeah, I think the cost to provide a search could massively compress margins. We think that it's roughly a penny and a half of revenue per Google search, and it might cost you a penny to run the AI model if you're running a large language model inference against that Google search. Well, that actually stacked on top of the other infrastructure of providing that search, that might eat all of the operating profit of a search if they're forced to do that. And so just from Google's perspective, going from a highly profitable business to a business that's marginally profitable is a big transformation for that company. And that's not even taking into account the potential revenue impact, the potential impact on traffic to search as a pattern for how people operate in the internet. So I think there's a lot of threat to that business model from here.
When you think about, for Microsoft, the percentage of revenue that comes from search, how committed do you think that they will be to this business that is going to be very costly for them to scale it from 30 million users now in their Chat GPT that's enabled with Bing versus like really going head to head with Google? And that's where this may kind of run out of steam a little bit.
Well, I think Microsoft, as an enterprise-facing company, actually has an advantaged position here. We think that AI is going to monetize through the enterprise first, and Microsoft could underwrite the search business as basically a loss leader in order to collect the data it needs to improve its AI capability in its Office suite software. I, as someone who uses Excel all the time, I'm looking forward to having an AI-powered Excel. And that AI-powered Excel is going to be better, and I'm going to pay more for it because of the data that Microsoft gets off of whatever happens with Bing. I don't think they're going to try to run Bing profitably because they have such a profitable Office productivity franchise that will be super powered by AI.
Brett, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to get your perspective on this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Brett Winton of ARK Invest. Guy, and it's interesting the way he poses it, that we're thinking strictly about Chat GPT-enabled Bing, but there's all other ways that AI will help Microsoft's business on the paying end when you're a paying customer for some of its productivity software.
Tim would call that the flywheel effect. It makes a lot of sense without question, right? I mean, I understand the accretiveness, the accretive nature it could have for Microsoft, but I also think we're probably a few years away from that at least. And in the meantime, this stock has gotten extraordinarily expensive in a very short period of time. You know, if we were tasked to talk about Microsoft 3 to 5 years from now, it might be a different conversation. I'll tell you, over the next couple of weeks, though, I think Microsoft has run too much too fast. And in that last quarter and the subsequent conference calls, all I needed to hear. With that said, I mean, he's talking about, if I listen to him correctly, a bit of an existential risk to Google if they don't get their act together. And that might be the case as well. But as Karen made the point earlier, I think Gene Munster as well last week, AI is something that Google's been working on for at least a decade, so it's not like they're completely behind the 8 ball. So, listen, the market speaks, you got to listen, but I think the market is a little ahead of itself right now.